Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Was in the 7 Ninja Swordsman, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto stood alone in his bedroom as he examined the gear currently displayed across his bed. 4 different scrolls containing kunai and shuriken, even the exploding ones. Beside that rested a medkit, a sturdy pair of ropes and another scroll containing sealing tags along with his custom-made gear. A standard blue shirt over which he would wear a common grey-colored flak jacket which was prevalent among Kumo shinobi, and dark black pants. Unlike the past where he preferred combat boots, this time he was wearing combat edition sandals as only the Kinkaku were allowed combat boots in Kumogaku. Another change was the fact that he was not going to carry Muramasa with him in this mission. Just like every other swordsman will be leaving their infamous swords behind and only carry standard weapons. It would reduce their power nearly by half, but the main objective of this mission was to break the Land of Lightning's unity. That would never happen if Kirigakure was found to be behind the assassination of the daimyo and his family. It was why he was carrying his sword from his Anbu days. It was a sharp weapon and extremely light in nature. The fact that it could channel chakra was an added bonus. At the end of this gear was also a will he had written should something happen to him. It was a possibility every shinobi had to prepare for, and he was no exception. After all these years, it was second nature to him. Previously, he had willed to have his assets and wealth be distributed to the orphan children of Izu. While that mandate still existed, he had also added another part of his will that made Ino his beneficiary for all the wealth he had earned in Kirigakure. Suffice it to say, considering his vast Anbu career and current enlistment as one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, would not leave her wanting for money. Satisfied that he had everything in place for tomorrow's mission, he quickly placed the entire set in his wardrobe carefully, to be taken out tomorrow night when he embarked on the mission. Just as he finished, he heard a soft knock on the door and saw his wife standing there patiently with a resigned expression on her face. "It's tomorrow, isn't it?" she asked knowingly. "Yes." He narrowed his eyes in curiosity when she nodded and then went out for a moment only to come back with a soft wooden box in her hands. He walked towards her and didn't miss the apprehension on her face. "Open it," she requested, earning a nod from him. He gingerly lifted the lid and blinked in surprise when he saw what she had got for him. He looked at her and saw her fears clearly. His hand picked up one of the custom-made kunai that was neatly placed in the box. Unlike other normal kunai, this one was completely different. For starters, there were 3 sharply edged blades instead of one possessed by normal kunai. While it was a little heavier, its handle was made of fine leather that made it easy to hold. He also didn't miss that it had tiny slot over which any seal could be placed to make it an explosive weapon. This weapon would prove extremely helpful in melee battles and long-range fights as well. Plus, there was another idea that was forming in his mind for which he could use these kunai. A weapon like this could only be crafted by the chief blacksmith of this village, one who had made his prized sword. And his services were extremely expensive, even most Junin couldn't afford to buy his weapons. Ino had brought 24 of such kunai for him if that other box of similar design resting on the dining table was any indication apart from the one in his hand. He lowered his gaze as the gift he had for her paled in comparison to what she had given him. "Is it not good? I'll bring something better if," said Ino worriedly. He immediately looked up in alarm as she was about to take his silence in the wrong way. The gaze met and he said 2 words that destroyed all her fears. "It's perfect." Ino felt a great weight had been lifted off her chest. Watching him smile at her warmed her heart. Getting these kunai had not been an easy task. For starters, the blacksmith had refused her quite a few times when she went to give the order. Only when she revealed her full name did the blacksmith immediately accept her offer, although it didn't change his exorbitant rates. Still, she had enjoyed that old fool's reaction when she introduced herself as Ino Namikaze. That memory made her blush as it was the first time she had truly acknowledged being his partner from her heart instead as a part of her mission. Something had changed inside of Naruto, she could see it even if he never said anything. He had always been considerate about her, But since past few days he made sure to assist her wherever he could. Though, cooking was something she made him stay away from if both of them wanted to live. He also took her out for outings and dinners, even when she insisted that he didn't have to. The fact that he took her to her most favorite places in the village showed her that something between them had changed. I also wanted to give you something, he said quietly, bringing her out of her own thoughts. You don't have to, she replied quickly, for she had not given him this gift and expected one in return. I'm really grateful to you for all that you have done for me. It might not seem much in your eyes, but it is for me. Although I doubt my gift will be as good as yours, he added sheepishly. He respectfully kept the kunai box on a nearby table but did hang on to the kunai in his hand quite possessively, which made her smirk. That smirk vanished when he opened one of his smaller drawers and produced a fine diamond necklace. Ino gasped as he approached back towards her, his own fears easy for her to see. However, her gaze was fixed upon the Namikaze clan marking on that necklace. It belonged to my mother. I want you to have it, he said with a smile. Naruto, I can't, this is a part of your family. And I am not one. Her eyes widened as she finally understood his feelings. She looked in his serene blue eyes and found nothing but endless love and affection for her. It brought tears in her eyes which made him panic instantly. He sheepishly babbled and apologized before she silenced him with a fierce K across his lips. He stood still for a moment before giving in as he wrapped his arms around her and returned her gesture. When they finally broke apart, she looked deep into his eyes to make sure he knew what he was doing. Naruto didn't flinch and understood her question even if she never asked him in words. He knew despite the gift which made things pretty clear about his feelings for her, he had to confess. This was not the way he wanted this to happen, but he couldn't go back now. You're very important to me, Ino. I remember the day we met, I nearly told you to mind your own business, he said apologetically, making her roll her eyes at him. You were an ass back then. Still are to some extent, she teased him, and was hoping he would retort back. Instead, he just smiled at her, which sent a tingling sensation in her heart. Still, you're a stubborn woman. You made sure to keep me focused and functional, you took up responsibilities for the both of us without expecting anything in return. You comforted me during my nightmares, even when I disrespected you, he remembered shamefully. It had been the earlier days of their partnership where he was wary of her. She had tried to comfort him during his nightmares only to receive warnings to stay away and even nearly coming to blows. Things were different back then. You have been through a lot, Naruto, she reassured him, but he shook his head. My crimes are mine. What I am trying to say is that you never gave up on me, supported me and cared for me despite not knowing me. You allowed me to make peace with my past, make peace with myself. Because of you I have hope for a future that I have never seen and I want you to be a part of that future, he confessed. Naruto, what are you? She asked, her throat feeling dry as he looked at her with a smile and blush covering his cheeks. I love you. He didn't look away even when her eyes widened and her lips trembled. A part of him was scared for going so far knowing how dangerous their jobs were. A part of him was scared of losing her. One more time. He repeated that mantra over and over again in his heart for he wanted to believe in the future, wanted to believe in her for she was worth it. She lowered her gaze and he tensed when a few tears fell on the floor, but then she wrapped her arms around him to pull him into a warm embrace. You took so long, Barker. His hands trembled as he melted into that warm embrace, but deep down a hole in his H was filled. Ino groggily opened her eyes when she felt the warmth beside her had gone missing. She flinched when she felt the evening rays of the sun penetrating through their room's window. She had never felt so tired and so fulfilled at the same time. The memories of their actions last night made her blush. The fact that she had slept for most of the day showed how tired she was. Her gaze fell upon her partner who had finished dressing up for his mission which would begin tonight. She watched him move around making sure to not her presence be felt. He grabbed most of his gear before looking at himself in the mirror. Her breath stopped when he activated those red eyes that resembled the Sharingan so much. He quickly practiced a strange set of hand seals at speeds which was impossible for her to follow. What happened next clearly baffled her. So this is how you are going to make sure that airdrop succeeds? She whispered in awe. She smirked on seeing his reaction before walking towards him without any shame. This jutsu belonged to my little brother, he confessed somberly. Nagato? She asked, remembering one of their recent conversations when he had revealed the names of his deceased family. The sadness in his eyes at the mentioning of his brother was enough for her to understand that perhaps Naruto loved his little brother more than anyone. That feeling was quickly replaced by hatred as he clenched his fists. He was a better shinobi than me. I can barely even master a small portion of this jutsu, but he could do so much more. He could have been so much more, whispered Naruto bitterly. Naruto, finally after so many years I will get the chance to revenge my little brother by the man whose ambitions led to his death, promised Naruto remorselessly. Revenge won't give you peace, Naruto, she warned him, and saw him stare at her with mild disappointment in his red eyes. So this is the Senju's will of fire. Hashirama, even as you still haunt this world with your mistakes, spat Naruto furiously. What? Asked Ino in surprise. She had never imagined Naruto carried so much bitterness towards the first Hokage. Even he still lives on through you and all those who carry his will. But he was wrong, said Naruto fiercely. He killed her before departing a few moments later, however their conversation haunted her as it only solidified what Tobirama had said to her a few days back when she had been placed on guard duty. She watched Naruto walk away from their balcony as Tobirama's words terrified her. The Namikaze clan is extinct because of Kumogakur. His parents and sibling are because of the ambition of the Land of Lightning. His comrades were butchered by the very same nation. Naruto carries all the hatred of the Namikaze clan, of his family, of his brother, of his comrades and will strike the Land of Lightning with that curse. For that is his ninja way. When Naruto reached the operation area, he was not pleased. The reason for that was plain and simple. His original plan involved 7 highly skilled operatives taking part in this mission, but now there were 7 in the area apart from him. His cold blue eyes narrowed at the unexpected addition of Mei Terumi. Even if she and the others had their faces covered by Kumogakur Anbu masks, he could easily identify each and every member of his squad. They must have also sensed his ire as Mangetsu immediately stepped forward and handed him a sealed scroll that had the Mizukage's stamp on it. Sending one scathing glare at Mei who flinched, he opened the scroll and clenched his fist as he read the order. Your backup plan. Those 3 words alone had sent his plan for a toss, much less jeopardized the entire mission. I have filled her in on the plan as per the Mizukage's orders, informed Mangetsu curtly, and didn't flinch when Naruto glared at him furiously. This is a mistake, cursed Naruto. Mei was extremely heartbroken on hearing those words but did not back away even as Naruto marched towards her. She remained tall and strong even as he mercilessly strapped that old seal back on her shoulder. I don't know how you played on the Mizukage's fears but know this, that you have crossed a line with me. Your presence here puts our entire operation at risk, scolded Naruto, even as he activated the seal that would keep her from activating her beastly powers without his explicit content. The village cannot afford to lose 7 of its best warriors for one mission. I am here to ensure all of you return back alive, Naruto, answered Mei curtly. That's commander for you and you will not use your powers unless I say so. You will not disobey me or I will kill you. Mei gulped when those merciless red eyes activated again in the commander's gaze, which clearly showed how serious he was about the threat he had just made. She might come in handy if we are deep counted Amayuri. A Jinchuriki is an open target and one which can be easily identified. Kumogakur will already have her marked and known to each of its shinobi, argued Jinpachi furiously. But the same could be said for us, argued Haku. Enough. The bantering instantly stopped when that command was issued by Naruto, who was looking at the night sky. We improvise. That's how the Black Ops function. He received grim nods in return as everyone fell into line, which finally made Naruto send a nod towards Mangetsu, who started performing a familiar set of hand seals. Summoning jutsu. The Hozuki clan ninja summoned forth a large eagle that stared back at the shinobi with a curious gaze. Mangetsu quickly hopped on top of it and took up what could be called the pilot seat. Use chakra to keep yourselves seated and make no unnecessary movements or you will fall to your deaths, instructed Naruto crisply. He watched as the squad took up positions over the large bird, and when his red eyes confirmed that each of them had grappled themselves with the summon through chakra, he nodded in satisfaction. Cover your eyes, for the skies will be violent tonight. As planned, the squad instantly donned their combat glasses, including Mei. The fact that she had the same gear as everyone else was a small relief for Naruto, as he had feared she had been sent in unprepared. Our hearing will be limited up there and during the jump, so we must rely on hand signs. Repeat them all once more, he commanded. He was pleased to note that everyone perfectly mimicked the hand signs for various short messages. The fact that Mei did not falter showed that Mangetsu had been thorough in her briefing. Check your gear and supplies. Nobody protested as they ran one last check over the limited but critical gear that they would be taking behind enemy lines. One by one they offered a thumbs up, and as Haku gave the last one she received a firm nod from Naruto. Silence prevailed in the forest around him as Naruto steeled himself and hopped on the bird. They all looked at each other and didn't miss the fact that somewhere deep inside their hearts they were nervous. It was very likely a one-way trip, and if caught, then their ends would not be pretty. But they were all seasoned shinobi who had lived through war, so no more words were required. Launch. Mangetsu sucked in a breath as the command was given by their leader, which was soon followed by a battle cry from the eagle as it flapped its massive wings, kicking up dust and debris. Mei was unable to stop her shaking as the beast took the skies, and she felt a nauseous feeling in her gut when she looked down at the increasing distance from the ground. A firm hand was placed on her shoulder and she looked back to see Naruto staring back at her with a firm but reassuring gaze. It was still clear that he was not happy with her presence but had accepted responsibility of her life as their commander. His soothing chakra made the uncomfortable feeling in her gut to remain in control, and on his advice she didn't look back down again and only stared at the sky and the vast sea ahead of them. 10 hours later, Zabuza grimaced as another strong wave of chilling air hit him, and if not for the commander's earlier instruction of using chakra to keep himself steady over the bird, well, it was safe to say he would have met a crappy end, considering all he saw around him were clouds. Very angry clouds. Haku let out a small shriek when the clouds nearby her roared in fury, spitting lightning across the skies. To her embarrassment, Amayuri saw her and laughed back even as the red-haired woman tried to stop her own flinching. Mangetsu felt it extremely difficult to see anything as the constant rainfall made it impossible even for him to see through his combat glasses. Even his summon felt uncomfortable flying at 25,000 feet in the midst of a violent storm and heavy rainfall. Jinpachi and Kisame looked at each other, with the latter giving a smirk as the former tried to scratch his balls, which felt like frozen ice after hours of sitting and enduring violent storms. Mei was shivering from the cold as the temperature was a lot more lower than she had expected. She was also facing difficulty in breathing, leading to more and more labored breaths. She chanced a peek backwards and saw Naruto standing at the rear end of the bird and observing the invisible ground with a nonchalant gaze. She could not imagine what kind of training and hell this man must have been through to remain so composed and unaffected when others around him weren't. The commander then turned towards Haku and raised his right hand to form a fist. The female shinobi gave a single nod as she performed few sets of hand seals. Wind release, wind rotation. The Yuki clan warrior managed to create perfect small pockets of air concentration across each of her team members' faces. After some adjustment, she also added a watery-looking mask that trapped the limited but critical amount of air against her teammates' masked faces. She also left behind a minute opening for contaminated air to be released. Naruto smirked when he noticed the relief across his teammates as they could properly breathe again. He then looked at them and raised his clenched fist. One by one they all carefully got up from their seats but made sure to keep their feet rooted to the bird's back through chakra, for the violent winds and heavy rainfall were trying their best to make them all fall. Naruto entwined both of his hands and received grim nods from his squadmates as each of them raised their right arm in a pledge and linked it upon the shoulder of the warrior in front of them, with Mei extending her arm towards Naruto. He could see easily that she was terrified of the next part, but something within her gaze showed that she wanted to trust him. That only added more weight to his consciousness as for a second he saw the faces of his S-program comrades staring back at him. Dismissing those thoughts, he remembered and performed the hand signs that were once made by his little brother before shaking his hand with Mei. The female Jinchuriki felt a foreign chakra invading her body, and the same feeling was experienced by each of her squadmates one after another as they felt the same power enter their body. Naruto looked down and through his red eyes he saw they were at perfect height for their jump. He also felt the barrier that was waiting to detect them on the ground at 1,000 feet. It was time. He gave a nod and couldn't help but respect the fact that Mangetsu didn't blink as he jumped off the bird. Zabuza was next followed by Kisame, the others followed suit mere seconds later until only Mei and Naruto left. A lone tear fell from her eyes and her hands were trembling. Naruto gave her a reassuring nod which allowed her to steel herself before she leapt away from safety. Immediately, she regretted her decision as she saw herself falling through the sky with her teammates right below her. She craned her neck but could not see Naruto but did feel the bird disappearing, which meant the commander had jumped or was made to jump in worst case. Rain and strong winds lashed against her body as she tried to keep her H from exploding. She saw Kisame pointing his hand downwards and understood the signal as she forced herself to fall faster. It was minutes or mere moments, Mei couldn't tell, but soon enough she saw the silhouettes of her entire team except for the commander flying nearby her. Jinpachi raised a single-hand seal and summoned a water-based jutsu in the form of a rope. With a practiced movement, he threw the rope in a circular motion, making Mangetsu grab it first, who then flew towards Zabuza, who grabbed him, followed by others until the entire squad was circled around each other and falling together. Zabuza yelled something with a crazy grin, but nobody could hear amidst the rain and storms. Apparently, he was asking them to make room, which was understood by Jinpachi, who forced everyone to create some space in their circle, and just in time as they saw their commander appear in between the circle. Except he was sporting large black chakra-powered wings on his back. Naruto made a hand seal and called forth the chakra he had distributed among his team before the jump. As if on cue, the chakra rose in the form of ash, which quickly took the form of large black wings, and not too soon as the ground started to become more and more clear. Mei felt the feeling of weightlessness vanish as those wings on her back slowed her fall as they started to flap. The same was the case with the others, who too were now aligned around the commander, who was concentrating and keeping the jutsu running by joining his hands. Ash release, multiple wing formation. B freely flowed from the commander's eyes and nose, but he didn't falter, which in turn allowed him to take full control over the descent of his squad. At this reduced height, few of them felt the barrier approaching, and Mangetsu quickly signaled to Amayuri. The female swordsmen grinned before performing a quick set of hand seals. Lightning style, rain of death. Summoning forth the bubbling and unstable energy among the clouds, Amayuri made dozens of lightning strikes fall upon the ground, which sent ripples across the barrier. Zabuza and Kisame were quick to follow suit as they too made more and more raindrops fall towards the concentrated area where Amayuri was raining lightning strikes sporadically. The enemy would easily detect them had they tried to infiltrate during daytime or during peaceful nights, as their chakra would have registered once breaching the barrier. But on a stormy night like this, with lightning strikes and heavy rainfall, it would be difficult to differentiate a water or lightning penetration from a chakra-based human's entry. For this purpose, the entire squad suppressed their chakra as much as they could, for they soon breached through the barrier, all except for the commander, who simply threw a three-pronged kunai, which was caught by Mangetsu. Mei saw Naruto hovering above the barrier and controlling the descent with the wings he had created, but he couldn't enter, for he was using maximum chakra, which the barrier would detect should he breach. The entire team gave out painful grunts when they managed to hit the ground in a rather ungraceful fashion, but quickly regained their bearings and took up combat positions. A bright yellow flash appeared beside him as Naruto rejoined them by teleporting and grabbing the three-pronged kunai in Mangetsu's hand. The commander instantly took to one knee and placed a single finger on the ground. For a few moments nobody spoke and observed their surroundings carefully for any sign of intercepting patrols to attack them. But nothing came, and that was when Naruto gave a grim smile. Successful breach. The squad breathed a sigh of relief on hearing that reply, but soon had to rein in the delight as they saw the vast and tall mountains around them along with the treacherous forest. The reality of being behind enemy lines and completely see off from any aid hit them all as everyone took out their weapons and looked at Naruto, who gave a firm nod. Showtime, boys and girls. The clouds continued to roar and unleash torrents of rainfall across the earth without mercy. It had been this way for almost an entire day as Mangetsu watched the fury of nature from the shelter of his cave. The winds were getting more dangerous, and random lightning strikes made it impossible for their squad to venture further into enemy lands without avoiding the risk of detection or damage. It was why their commander had ordered them to bunker down in this cave for the time being and await further orders from him. Oi, isn't the commander too edgy lately? Asked Amayuri with a frown, even as she ate her not so pleasant rations. Yeah, he has a real axe to grind against Kumogaku and especially the Kinkaku, commented Kisame with a grin, as he continued to drum his fingers against his ordinary sword. About that, during the Battle of Osaka I witnessed something strange. The Kinkaku are feared across the world, those bastards even captured the second Hokage. Yet they pissed their pants and ordered a retreat when they saw the commander standing against them. If the mere thought of fighting the commander scared the Kinkaku, whispered Haku hesitantly. Mei tried not to say anything even as the swordsmen were chatting amongst themselves. Majority of them were intrigued or terrified of the commander's past and what impact it might have on this mission. She glanced at Mangetsu and saw him staring at the outside forest where the commander had went ahead to scout. Most of you cannot understand what the commander has lost, not unless you step into his shoes, advised Mangetsu quietly. What do you mean? Asked Jinpachi with a frown. It's his destiny to fight against the arch-rivals of his clan because of whom he's the last Namikaze in this world, said Mangetsu seriously. Mei perked up as her inner nerd couldn't help but be interested to hear out the Hozuki heir. Even in Kirigakure, not much was known about the Namikaze clan except for the fact that while they were a small clan, their power was not something to scoff at. Few of their clan members were renowned to be one of the most powerful shinobi of their era until the entire clan was wiped out. The story began during the Clan Wars era. While everyone knows about the Uchiha Senju rivalry, not many know about another clash between two equally skilled clans. Both of them were feared for their speed and power. While the richer nations hired the Uchiha and Senju along with their allies to secure their interest, the smaller nations with limited resources hired the Namikaze and Kaizen clan, explained Mangetsu. Kaizen clan. I'm afraid I have never heard of them, said Zabuza with a frown, earning a nod from the Mizukage's son. I'm not surprised you don't know since they gave up the clan name when they joined the Land of Lightning. However, what may surprise you is the fact that two of their members became Kage, said Mangetsu seriously. You mean the first and third Raikage? Asked Haku in surprise, earning a grim nod in return. The current Raikage is also a part of the Kaizen clan. The Uchiha and Senju were known for mass conflict, but not every nation could afford their services. There were times when a more subtle approach was required. The Namikaze and Kaizen clans were feared for their speed. Both clans were never a match for the mighty two clans but had produced some of the finest Black Ops shinobi in the world. While the Uchiha and Senju fought in the light, the Namikaze and Kaizen fought in the shadows for their respective clients. But as the war dragged on, their numbers started to dwindle due to endless conflict. It finally came to an end when the Uchiha Senju formed an alliance which forced others clans to join new factions. This is where the Namikaze clan made a critical mistake, revealed Mangetsu. What mistake? Asked Kisame curiously. They had offers from the Land of Fire and Land of Lightning to join their new hidden villages. However, they valued their independence and didn't believe in the new world forming around them. While the Land of Fire, especially the Senju, were very interested to make the Namikaze clan one of their village members, in the end they respected the Namikaze's decision to stay independent and signed a non-aggression pact. The Land of Lightning did not take this refusal kindly and instead assimilated the Kaizen clan into the newly formed Kumogakure. With their never-ending grudge against the Namikaze and the backing of the disgruntled daimyo, the Raikage, who was also from the Kaizen clan, launched an all-out attack and wiped out their arch-rivals in a single strike. However, for every Namikaze that was K, 3 men from the Land of Lightning as well. Ultimately, numbers were not in the favor of the Namikaze clan and they were overwhelmed. With no allies to call upon, they were wiped out, explained Mangetsu frankly. The group fell silent after hearing Mangetsu's retelling of the fate of the Namikaze clan. No wonder he hates Kumogakure so much. I can only imagine what being the last of his clan makes him feel, whispered Haku, who was afraid at the mere possibility of her becoming the last member of her flourishing clan. Whatever the case, I have never seen a Black Ops mission like this. I know the Anbu are strong, but what we just did, whispered Kisame seriously, as he remembered the suicidal jump from the skies. I thought I was done for, joked Zabuza. It wouldn't even be funny if things hadn't gone as planned, agreed Jinpachi with a smirk. That just proves we need to believe in the commander, urged Mangetsu. That's too much faith, Mangetsu, warned Amayuri with a frown. It's true that Naruto's personal vendetta is a risk in this mission, but for all his faults, he is a fine officer. Has he led us down till now? Asked Mangetsu honestly. Silence fell upon the group again as nobody could refute Naruto's devotion towards the men under his command. Even now, the fact that he was risking his life alone proved that he was someone the squad could depend on. The skies continued to weep furiously and threatened to drench the land in its anger. The winds were becoming more dangerous and random lightning strikes were proving to be life-threatening. Amidst nature's chaos, one human carefully kept himself hidden in the tall trees of the forest, his red eyes scanning each and every direction with extreme precision. Naruto nodded in satisfaction when he saw a squad of Kumo ninjas passing through the area. Judging from their armament, this was a border patrol. He needed intel before he could take his squad deeper behind enemy lines, and the only source of getting it was through someone within the enemy ranks. Carefully, he started trailing the patrol squad by using the trees as his cover and keeping his chakra suppressed. The easier option would be to K this patrol and extract intel, but that would blow their cover. He needed the enemy to assume they were safe until the very last moment, so he followed the enemy squad while taking note of the fact that all the men were looking towards the woman in the western direction for guidance. He had found his target. Carefully, he grabbed one of the three-pronged kunai gifted to him by Ino from his pouch strapped on his leg. Looking at the skies, he waited for a few moments until the next thunder rumbling sounded across the area, and that was when he threw the kunai straight in the direction of the female enemy squad leader. She had no chance as a dark flash happened before her the very next second, and a pair of crimson eyes gazed into her very soul. Naruto grabbed the kunai embedded in the tree and vanished before his 3 seconds timer was up. He retreated back to his vantage point and saw the female patrol leader shake her head in confusion. He clenched the kunai in his hand, waiting for the possibility of his enemy sounding an alarm. He had marked her just in case and was ready to end her life in a second. Fortunately for her, she didn't remember what had happened just as Naruto wanted and instructed the patrol to move forward, leaving the lone Kiri X Anbu alone. Naruto bit out a small curse as he remembered the information he had gained. Apparently this patrol had no information on the exact whereabouts of the daimyo. But he did learn the fact that there were 7 hideouts across the Kazama Mountains, under one of which was the royal family. However, that area was on a 15,000 feet high mountain. He could not help but admire the enemy's strategic brilliance, as the Kazama Mountains were almost impossible to climb. Humans without chakra had never been able to climb it due to the steep rocks, but even shinobi had failed horribly, as the very same rocks had a violent reaction when they came into contact with any form of chakra. He was not strong enough to make his entire squad fly that high up. Hell, he didn't even have enough skill to make himself fly that high. If only his brother was here. Dismissing those morbid thoughts, he started to think about his next course of action. To reach those mountains, they would have to cross this treacherous forest first, which was full of bee traps and 3 Anbu platoons supported by 4 dozen border patrol units. He had a feeling that they would be facing heavy action very soon. To their credit, his team didn't flinch or show fear when he relayed back the intel that he had obtained. He couldn't help but respect their resolve as he waited for anybody to speak up. "You are looking at something we can't even see. We'll follow your lead, Commander," promised Mangetsu, a sincere look ever present in his eyes. The same gaze was present among the others as well. Mei watched Naruto stare at the group with a surprised gaze before a thin smile graced his lips as he nodded at them all. "We go to war tonight." Everybody nodded, even as the heavy rains had finally settled and the sun was starting to peek through the dispersing clouds. Venturing outside now was too dangerous, as it was wise to stay hidden until nightfall and take the enemy by surprise in the dark. They saw the commander heading back outside to take watch, but Mangetsu placed a hand on his shoulder which stopped him. The Mizukage's son gave him a faint smile. "You should rest," suggested Mangetsu in a friendly tone. "I can still." "Don't try to shoulder everything alone, Naruto. Just as we are relying on you, we also want you to rely on us," advised Mangetsu. The blonde-haired commander couldn't help but realize how similar Mangetsu was to his father, in beliefs at least. When he saw the same feelings in the eyes of the others as well, he relented and gave the younger shinobi a nod. "Thank you," he whispered, earning a smirk from Mangetsu as he went outside to take first watch. As he moved deeper into the cave, Zabuza offered him a can of water and Haku offered him the military rations, which he took with a grateful nod. As he sat down to eat his share, he saw everyone staring at him expectantly. "What?" he asked, half irate and half confused. "Just curious about the pretty face under that mask," teased Amayuri, which made him blush and elicited a laugh from everyone except May, who sent a glare towards the other redhead member of the group for that remark. Still, even May couldn't hide the fact that she also wanted to see the man under that mask. A part of her felt Eno to be very lucky, while another scolded herself for even thinking in that direction. The man was married and she had no right to intrude, no matter how much her heart wanted to. She raised an eyebrow when Naruto pointed towards the entrance of the cave, making everyone look in that direction, but there was nothing to see except for Mangetsu standing there. Annoyed, the remaining squad turned back towards Naruto only to see him throw away the now empty military rations pack, followed by sealing the empty can of water offered by Zabuza. And he also had that victorious grin on his face as he had fooled everyone. Sorry, Mayuri. Some other time, okay. Teased Naruto with a cheeky smile, earning a huff from the redhead and disgruntled looks from the others including May. How did you eat and drink so fast? Asked Haku incredulously. Naruto's response was a simple shrug, which only served to irate his followers even more. Before anybody could drag him into another conversation, he swiftly laid down on his back and went off to sleep, knowing this would probably be the last time in a while before he could rest again. May hesitantly walked outside the cave to move forward in the direction where Naruto was currently sitting. There was a peaceful expression on his face as he watched the setting sun. She, on the other hand, was very nervous, knowing what was to come tonight. Commander, she called out to him, making him look back at her curiously. His blue eyes looked at her and she was relieved to see that most of the anger they had previously held within them for her had subsided. He gestured for her to sit, a request she accepted with a thankful smile. Silence ensued between them as May too glanced at the setting sun, even as she contemplated how to make things right once again between them. I'm sorry, May. She blinked in surprise on hearing him apologize, but he merely gave her a smile. I was too harsh on you earlier. I was angry, he said honestly without mincing any words. I did intrude into your plan. The fault is mine, I am sorry for that, but I want you to know that I only wanted to protect the ones whom the village depends upon, she replied nervously, hoping he could understand why she did what she did. He sighed even as he passed his hand through his glowing blonde hair. You're a very important shinobi, May. Your existence is the reason why people can sleep at night in peace. I wanted you to watch over the village and instead you did the opposite, to join a suicidal mission. I wanted you to remain safe so that if in the situation where we failed, you could protect the village in our stead, clarified Naruto. I'm not sure most people share your feelings, Commander, answered May bitterly, as she remembered the lifelong distrust and scorn her fellow villagers had bestowed upon her just for existing. I can never understand your pain, May. Being a Jinchuriki is a painful life, but despite all the hardships you have faced, you turned into a fine shinobi who has the well-being of the people in your heart. One day, the villagers will also see what I am seeing right now, said Naruto confidently. What is it that you see in me, Commander? Asked May hesitantly. A hero. May's eyes widened on hearing those words, and judging from the calm look in his eyes, Naruto meant what he said, which was something she couldn't understand, and he knew that, so he explained. You have a loving heart and a wonderful soul. It's these two things that makes you strong, that allows you to continue to protect the village despite not receiving recognition for your sacrifice. You never gave up, and even now you set aside your own well-being to protect your comrades. One day the people will see you for the hero you are, in fact they have already started, explained Naruto seriously. May's eyes became moist as she finally remembered the hostile looks she had received from the shinobi of the 501st before the Battle of Osaka. But ever since they returned to the village, few of them had not glared at her, with a handful few even nodding at her when they crossed paths in the village. Even as a few tears rolled down her cheeks, he didn't laugh or mock her for showing weakness. You're a good man, Naruto. Naruto looked away on hearing her say that, knowing it was far from the truth, for he never forgot the way in which he killed so many innocent and guilty people. There was an evil within him that threatened to consume him every day. He blinked when he saw May extend her right hand towards him and saw her smile at him. Friends? She asked hopefully, much to his surprise. Naruto had never felt more disgusted with himself than he did now, for he knew that in truth he was an enemy of her. His very existence was a threat to Kirigakure, and someday his secret would be out. He didn't mind if she hated him after that, but that truth would destroy her faith in people. You either say a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. He remembered his father's words from long ago and couldn't help but realize they were so true. As he shook Mei's hand, he knew what he had become. Mei watched as Naruto explained the plan of action to the team. Essentially, he wanted them to split into two halves, one led by him and the other led by Kisame. Each squad would have 4 members and would target their respective enemies swiftly. Team Namikaze would be made up of Naruto, Mangetsu, Haku and Mei. Team Hoshigaki would be made up of Kisame, Zabuza, Aomori and Jinpachi. While Naruto's team would encounter and neutralize the Anbu Black Ops guarding the forest, Kisame and his team would neutralize the border patrols made of Kumo regular military. A few in the group had suggested if confrontation could be avoided, but when they saw the pattern in which the enemy was spread across the area, it was almost impossible to avoid contact, or if by some miracle they escaped, that still left their back wide open should the enemy realize their presence. It would be a disaster should the enemy counterattack when their squad was attempting to climb the dangerous Kazama Mountains. They would be cornered completely and wiped out. Mei shuddered on imagining such a scenario and couldn't help but agree more with Naruto's desire to deal with the enemy first before they dealt with them on their own terms. It was possible that the enemy command would notice their border units dropping out of contact and would send reinforcements to investigate, however that small window was an opportunity their squad would use to scale the mountain and storm the front. After all, they had to make it very clear that they were Kumogaku shinobi hired by the daimyo's rivals within his own family to take him out. That would fracture the trust between the next daimyo and his advisors with Kumogaku, which could become the catalyst to ending this war. She looked at the veterans around her and couldn't help but feel whether or not she would be able to do what needed to be done. But one look at Naruto strengthened her resolve, as she didn't want to destroy the trust her friend had placed in her. Everybody clear about the strike? Asked Naruto seriously. We'll neutralize our targets and mark the B with these sealing tags, repeated Kisame seriously, as he showed one of the tracking seals supplied by Naruto to everyone. That's correct. These seals should allow me to sense the B, and with my powers, I will make them disappear forever without any trace for the enemy to investigate, promised Naruto. You'll turn the B to ashes? Asked Haku hesitantly. She would never hesitate to eliminate the enemies of her village, but to MB. Even enemies should have some respect for each other. Granted, in the shinobi world no such tradition existed, unlike the samurai who showed honor to their enemies even in death. But when she looked into Naruto's cold eyes, all she saw was the gaze of a veteran ex-Anbu willing to do anything for the sake of the mission. That's the way of the Black Ops, answered Naruto without any remorse, making Haku gulp, but she offered no further protest. That will help keep the enemy focused and make them divert critical resources to investigate further. We will use that time to scale the mountain, find out the target's exact location and strike. Mangetsu, keep your summon ready for our extraction will be violent, ordered Naruto seriously. Mangetsu nodded his acceptance as Naruto looked at his men one last time. For Kiri, the looks in the eyes of his men changed instantly when he whispered those words, and they all looked back at him with merciless eyes as they repeated his words. For Kiri, Team Namikaze. Mangetsu watched Mei and Naruto charging through the forest by his side while Haku kept to the trees and would provide cover fire from up above while the three of them engaged in close-quarter combat. It was imperative they fight the enemy in hand-to-hand combat and use minimum ninjutsu, for that would be instantly detected by the barrier all around them. Even now, he feared they were already detected, but Naruto had assured him that his sealing tags currently placed over the armor of every squad member would be enough to keep them invisible to the enemy's senses and barrier team. The enemy wouldn't know about them until they came face to face, at least that was what Mangetsu hoped would happen. He had fought all kinds of ninjas in his life, but he always was wary of going up against the Black Ops shinobi from any nation, for they were the elite and most ruthless warriors of their respective nations. Even Mei shared his feelings if the nervous expression on her face was any indication. But Naruto, those cold red eyes that were so much like the Sharingan, were eager for B. He could feel the commander's intent rising with every passing second, and his hand was itching to grab the sword at his back. Mangetsu steeled himself when he saw the makings of the enemy camp up ahead and heard Naruto unleash his sword. Ah! Ordered the masked commander. The first female Anbu on sentry duty barely saw a three-pronged kunai pass by her and gasped when a second later a pair of stone-cold red eyes appeared before her. Meanwhile, Several Anbu rushed outside of their tents only to get caught in the poison-laced smoke that was spreading everywhere. Team Namikaze on the other hand charged through the poison undeterred as they had already administered the antidote in their systems. Mangetsu jumped straight towards one of the tallest Anbu who was in the process of performing a wind-style attack to disperse the poison. The enemy growled on seeing him and hacked at him with his sword, but Mangetsu ducked and sa seal on the man's leg, above him. They both grimaced when the corpse of their fallen enemy exploded into a rain of shrapnel that instantly showered every nearby Anbu, making them cry out in agony. "Those seals are nasty," said Mei disgustedly. As expected from an Anbu officer. "Let's go," replied Mangetsu seriously, as he saw Naruto place his sword on his back and switching to close-quarter combat by drawing a three-pronged kunai in each of his hand. The enemy might have been in a better position to counter, but too many factors were against them. First, the moon was completely covered by clouds, making visibility extremely difficult, but for shinobi of Kiri trained to fight even in the mist, it was an advantage. Second, the entire camp was now covered in the poison-laced smoke unleashed by Naruto at the very start. It had a nasty reaction of instantly paralyzing its victims' motor functions, followed by a gruesome death as it melted their insides. Haku was quick to act and neutralized quite a score of Anbu trying to shake off the preliminary dizziness from the poison. Third, the shrapnel bomb had injured most of the enemy force. While not enough to end their lives, it had created panic and fear among the enemy ranks as they heard their comrades screaming in horror and agony. This three-pronged attack left the enemy blind, injured and terrified. "Mei," called Mangetsu, earning a nod from his partner. They both were relieved to see the few Anbu strong enough to fight were being forced to dodge around as Haku's needles rained down everywhere from the trees. Both Kiri shinobi raised a single hand seal, while Naruto had barred them from using chakra-heavy ninjutsu. This one was designed to consume the least chakra and would not be noticed by the enemy sensor and barrier teams. Hidden Mist Jutsu. Naruto saw a thick mist starting to spread across the already vision-impaired area, creating further panic and anger among the enemy. They couldn't see them at all, but he could, as his sharp red eyes showed him the chakra forms of every enemy still alive. His comrades were either senses or used to fighting in the dark, as he heard him expertly K the remaining enemy shinobi. He narrowed his eyes when he saw a hidden Anbu at a nearby treetop who had survived the trap his comrades had gotten themselves into. Judging from the hand signs, he was about to launch a wind jutsu. Naruto instantly threw his three-pronged kunai towards the enemy and grinned when the man caught it instantly while sending an arrogant laugh downstairs. That laugh abruptly be away when Naruto instantly appeared before the man's H exploded from the powerful blow as a permanent horrified expression became etched in his eyes as he fell to the ground. The Kiri commander looked down and saw there were 20 Anbu still left and they had huddled around each other in an effort to counterattack. Mangetsu and Mei were moving towards the group, but it would be too late by the time they reached. He cursed as he allowed his chakra in the form of ash to leak from his body and fall directly over the Anbu survivors. He looked at Haku in the nearby trees and gestured for Plan B, to which she nodded. Together, both of them were prepared for this possibility and flawlessly threw several barrier seals across the nearby trees. Naruto clasped his hands together and trapped his own two comrades along with the remaining enemy in a small red-colored barrier. Everything trapped inside the barrier would become invisible to the enemy barrier team for the time being, which essentially allowed him to ninjutsu. It was a risk that the enemy would still detect the use of chakra, but it was one he had to take to protect his squad. The Anbu were slowly organizing themselves and it would not be pretty if they counterattacked. His squadmates were strong but not seasoned enough to battle these many ruthless Anbu all at once. He made his decision as the ash expertly blended in the smoke around the Anbu survivors. Mangetsu and Mei had stopped their advance when they sensed the barrier going up around them, and on hearing Haku's warning whistle they instantly retreated back to the edge where Naruto allowed him to exit the barrier. To his surprise, the enemy Anbu had caught the trail and were also following. Quickly, he sealed the exit just as Mei escaped and clasped his hands together. Ash release, explosion. Haku shielded her eyes as a bright light engulfed the barrier completely and then everything went silent. Mangetsu and Mei watched as the barrier slowly fell apart and as the smoke cleared, both of them gulped on seeing nothing remaining of the enemy camp or its inhabitants. All that remained was charred earth. Mangetsu hesitantly touched the darkened soil and couldn't help but fail to recognize this black soil from the ashes of the men and women who had been moments ago before his very eyes. He flinched when Naruto jumped beside him and calmly observed the destruction he had inflicted. The words said by the commander next sent a shiver down the of his three comrades. I am become death, Kirigaku. Genjutsu Hozuki was very angry. Not only were his negotiations with Tobirama Senju making very slow progress, but he also had additional problems to deal with apart from the ongoing war. He stared at the unconscious man dragged before him and currently being held by his arms through two Anbu officers as the Anbu commander stood aside and looked at him. What made Genjutsu more angry was the fact that he knew this Junin who was one of the top-ranking officers from the Hunter Corps. Lord Second, there is no mistake. KG has confessed to his capital crimes and has admitted to being a spy of a Wagakur, reported the Anbu commander flatly, although if one listened carefully then the man's own hidden anger was barely audible in his voice. Genjutsu gestured for the other Anbu to take away the prisoner to his cell where he would be soon subjected to Kiri's infamous hospitality. But the Mizukage's thoughts were already drifting to another subject. How many more wolves do you think are existing in our home? Asked Genjutsu bitterly. KG would not be the first. I suggest we do a thorough background check of every shinobi serving under respective branches of our military, suggested the Anbu commander. That would take too much time. We need to weed them out now, barked Genjutsu frustratedly. How was he supposed to win a war if he couldn't even trust his own men? Understood, Lord Second. I will form a small squad of Anbu who are loyal to the village. Together under my command, we will weed out the traitors, promised the Anbu commander. I want to evaluate the men you choose for this mission before you start. And not a word about this to anyone else, or it could fracture the morale of our troops, warned Genjutsu, earning a nod from one of his most loyal officers. It will be done, Lord Second, promised the Anbu commander. Is there any support you require from me? Asked the Mizukage seriously, earning another nod in return from his subordinate. It's actually about one of the shinobi I want to recruit for this mission. She is infamous for being one of the best interrogators among the hunters. I want to recruit her, requested the Anbu leader. What's her name? Asked Genjutsu seriously. If someone had caught this man's gaze for their skill, then they were definitely someone Genjutsu was interested in, for it was this very man who had recommended Naruto for one of the seven, and it had turned out quite well for the village and for the Mizukage himself. Ino Namikaze. Instantly, the Mizukage tensed as he heard that name. This was possibly a dangerous mission for everyone involved, as there was no prediction as to how the traitors within their ranks would react once the trap started to squeeze around them. Could he really endanger Naruto's wife like this? But he dismissed those thoughts. His loyalty was first towards the village rather than one of his subordinates alone. You can recruit whomever you want, including Ino Namikaze. But first conduct a complete background check on her history and present the report to me. Only post my approval will she be made a part of the team. The same procedure will be followed for the other recruits of your team, instructed the Mizukage. It will be done, Lord Second, assured the Anbu commander. Genjutsu watched the man hesitate for a second, but in the end he decided to speak what was on his mind. I will do a complete check on Ino and others whom I want to recruit. But what about my check? Asked the Anbu leader hesitantly. Genjutsu smirked. Leave that to me. Besides, I trust you, however as a precaution you will undergo a check directly by me, ordered Genjutsu. I am ready, Lord Second. Genjutsu noted the fearless tone of this man and doubted he had anything to hide, yet he couldn't afford any mistakes. He could not accuse anyone innocent to be a traitor, but at the same time he could not be too lax with the security of the village, especially during this time of war. Sooner or later, he had to weed out the spies hiding within his village. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.